We are joined now by Justin Hopkins of ScoopDuck.com, On3's Oregon site. And guess what? Oregon was off last week. Washington was off that last week. Collision course for these two teams in Seattle for the top of the Pac-12 at the moment. Justin, how much buzz is there in Eugene about this game?
Yeah, it's been really tough to kind of keep things wrangled in because the minute Oregon was done with its last game, which was a win over Stanford, it was immediately, here we are, it's into hate week. It's double hate week, which is what it's called. It's always been called hate week, but now you get 2 weeks of it, and fans have wanted to talk about it all week, and it's just, there's so much buildup and excitement for this game, just because of how good the two teams are, but also because you get to do 2 weeks of it as well.
Well, and the way, especially for Oregon fans, I imagine, and Oregon players and coaches, the way last year's game went, where Bo Nix gets hurt at the end, where it looked like Oregon had the momentum, was going to be able to win the game, and then he gets hurt. Washington kicks a field goal, goes up, and winds up winning the game. And ultimately, that keeps Oregon out of the Pac-12 championship game. How much has this burned in this offseason for the Ducks?
Yeah, I think, the way Oregon lost to Oregon State was tough, and there's no doubt that burned. But when you lose to your rival, when you lose to Washington, when you had the game basically in your hands, for the most part, and unfortunately just kind of let it slip away because of circumstance, and hard part was it's Dan Lanning's first year, and maybe there's some learning curve there for Dan Lanning as well, which I think he's learned from this year. Yeah, it's a tough way to lose. You never want to lose to your rival. I know one of the proudest moments in Oregon history is going 12-0 against the Huskies, 12 seasons in a row with wins. So, yeah, that was tough for Oregon. And, I think if anything else, perhaps that's the motivator for Dan Lanning this week heading into this game is, hey, let's not repeat last year. Let's leave no doubt.
Well, and I imagine it was fun beating Washington all these years, but with Chris Peterson getting that program back up and now Kalen DeBoer taking over and doing really well, how much more fun is it when both teams are good to play that game? Because the hate level is off the charts in this thing. It's not, Washington has Washington State, Oregon has Oregon State, but it's not the same as the hatred level between Oregon and Washington.
No, the Civil War and the Apple Cup are great rivalries, but this is an epic rivalry. If you were a casual and happened to be in Seattle that weekend and said, hey, let's go watch the game, wear something neutral so you don't get spit on, or it's legit. I mean, I get it. It's what makes football what it is. It's the passion, it's the rivalry, it's the pageantry. And this is, at the top in terms of college football of that. So there's no problem calling it hate week and calling it what it is. These two teams flat out just don't like each other. And to have, this kind of standing with it, for it to be a top 10 matchup, playoff implications, both teams are really good on offense. Both teams are pretty good on defense. Oregon has the advantage there a little bit, but I mean, you're looking at two very quality teams, and that this is quote unquote your mid-year Super Bowl, if you will, for both teams.
Let's talk a little bit of Oregon, Washington. What if you wanted to go to that game? Well, Game Time has your tickets. If you use the code STAPLES, you get 20% off your first purchase. Download that Game Time app. And I'm on the Game Time app right now. You can get into that game in Seattle for $130. For $320, you can get right down on the field. It's pretty nice. But what if you don't live on the West Coast? What if you wanted to go to beautiful Kenan Stadium and watch undefeated North Carolina play against Miami, where, well, I don't know if they're going to take a knee or not, but you can get into that game for as little as $86. And maybe you want to go to Tennessee and Texas A&M. That would be a little more expensive, but you could get a pretty nice seat at Neyland Stadium. And you don't have to stress about it. You know exactly where you're going to sit. The tickets are downloaded right to your device. You can text them to your friends on game day. So download that Game Time app. The code is Staples. It's $20 off your first purchase. I may have said 20% off. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, less stress, guaranteed. It's game time. And the thing is, it's like, this is the best quarterback matchup in the year so far. Bo Nix versus Michael Penix Jr. It'll kind of be a round robin because both these teams have to play Caleb Williams and USC later in the year. But it is just so much fun to see quarterbacks playing at this level. And Penix throws the prettiest deep ball in America. He's got those great receivers. But let's talk about Nix. He's completing 80% of his passes this year. That's insane.
It is. Yeah, it's Oregon's offense. They're two completely different offenses. Oregon does put up the passing numbers, but it's more of an efficiency, right? It's a lot shorter, screens and just simple patterns that keep the offense moving down the field. Whereas, Washington can break your back on a single play. They can chuck a 70-yarder, on first down if they want to. So it's a different way of going about it, but I mean, when you have a general out there like Bo Nix with his experience, with his understanding of the offense, of his ability to read the defense, as you'll recall, just 2 years ago, we were all, hey, is Bo Nix ever going to get it? He's kind of an interception machine. He struggles there. And now he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in America. I believe Oregon's first turnover was last week against Stanford. That's pretty remarkable.
So now that you've seen almost half a season of Will Stein, what are the differences between his offense and the one Kenny Dillingham ran?
Not a lot, really. I think they tend to lean on the run game a little bit less than Dillingham did, and I don't know that it's lean. I think they're just kind of saving that, saying, okay, well, if you're not going to stop what we're doing, we're having success here with the short intermediate throws. I think we're going to keep doing that. And then once you decide that that's what you're going to do and we spread you wide, we're going to send Bucky Irving right up the gut, or, whoever the running back is back there. They're 3 or 4 deep in the backfield without Noah Whittington, who's a tremendous player, but done for the year. It's just the ability to have that balance. And it's, as we know, if you're an offensive coordinator, you're looking at matchups, you're looking at numbers, you're looking at where you can take advantage of the defense. And I think Will Stein does that almost underappreciated to an underappreciated level. Is just that it's so small and you don't really notice until after the game. You're like, that was really good.
Well, and it helps having that offensive line. And I think about, one of Dan Lanning's first big gets was getting Josh Connerly to commit. It was a Oregon USC recruiting matchup. He's a 5-star. He's one of those, he waited till February. And that felt like the first sign, okay, he's going to keep doing on the line of scrimmage what Mario Cristobal was, but he's also a defensive guy who's going to bring in these guys on the other side of the ball too. And Connerly, after a season to kind of get used to things, seems to be as advertised.
Yeah, he's having a tremendous second season. Last year, he was a real bright spot on that offensive line. I know that when he came in, he kind of came in late because of when he signed and enrolled, and it was after April. He didn't get the benefit of spring ball. And next thing you know, in fall ball, a couple weeks, it's like, he's pretty good, but it's not there yet. And then it was like 2 games in, it's like, yeah, he's a real deal. And this year, he's just capitalized on that. And I think because, like you said, that offensive line is very complete all the way across. They give up very few pressures, virtually no sacks on Bo Nix this year. You almost don't talk about Connerly enough because they're all really good, but he's exceptional, as he's just a very gifted player, and I don't think he's getting the national recognition.
Now, defensively, they did add some pieces through the portal. They lost Christian Gonzalez, first-round corner, but like you said earlier, it does feel like a more complete defense. Why is that? Yeah,
I think it was those portal additions. If you look at what Oregon did this offseason, and again, ahead of this matchup, Washington's very pass-happy attack. I think you knew, if you're Dan Lanning, you're looking at USC and what Lincoln Riley's always done, and he throws the football. He's got Caleb Williams. They bolstered up in that secondary. So a lot of their key contributors in the secondary this year were through the transfer portal. Tysheem Johnson from Ole Miss, starter in the secondary. Kyrie Jackson, starter at corner from Alabama. Evan Williams from Fresno State. His brother Bennett played at Oregon last year, starter at safety. So that's where they really bolstered up. Now, you went and got Jordan Birch up front, which has been a tremendous get. We have yet to see Justin Jacobs from Iowa. I know everybody's just kind of waiting for his debut, and I think we're going to finally see it in Seattle this week. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's going to happen. And you kind of wonder what Oregon's defense will look like with him potentially out there healthy at linebacker. So again, I think that's what Dan Lanning saw is like, hey, our defense has to get better. It has to be better. And that's what he prioritized in the transfer portal this year.
Yeah, it is going to be a fun game. And that defense is going to be challenged. How do you think this game plays out?
Well, I think if you're Oregon, you're going to really try to limit those explosive plays, right? You're going to give up some yards. I think you're going to do a lot of bend but don't break on defense. You're going to get down on the red zone and then tighten down and hope you can get them to kick field goals instead of those, like we said earlier, Penix has a beautiful deep ball. If he wants to throw a 75-yarder, he absolutely can, and you don't want to give those up. So very much it feels like because it's in Seattle, because they're the home team, I think Oregon has the more complete defense, but I think that home field advantage is going to play into it. And it just really looks like this is going to be the last team with the football ends up winning this game. Field goal, just something dramatic from a touchdown. I don't know. It certainly has the makings of that kind of game.
Well, it's so interesting after watching Texas and Oklahoma on Saturday, two teams that are the best in their conference, going at it, great game, classic finish. And then you're like, oh, well, they're probably going to play again like 20 miles from here in December. It doesn't feel that way with this game, even though they might end up playing again later in the year. But the problem is if you lose, you still got to deal with USC. You may have to deal with a potentially full-strength Utah. If you catch Oregon State in the wrong place, you're going to lose. Catch UCLA in the wrong place, you're going to lose. So for both these teams, it feels like you got to win this to give yourself a chance to play in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, I agree. If you want to cement your spot, if you will, in playing in that playoff, in the Pac-12 championship game, you got to win, because then you control your own destiny, and all you have to do moving forward is win the rest of your games. And I say all you have to do, which is not easy, but you control your own destiny. And if you're Washington or if you're Oregon and you lose this game, like you said, you've still got the gauntlet ahead of you. You've got to beat, Utah. You've got to beat Washington State. You've got to watch out for USC. There's some really good games out there. Wazoo is a team that nobody likes to play. Oregon State, very similar, the team you don't want to play just because they're that tough. So you've still got to run the gauntlet, and you might need a little help along the way if you're the loser of this game. So, yeah, controlling your own destiny is always best. You could easily get back if you do lose this game, but you might need a little luck along the way in order to do that.
So the restful hate week is over. The real hate week begins. Oregon and Washington in Seattle for the top of the Pac-12. Cannot wait. Justin Hopkins, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.